A lot of people have asked me to put together a Resto Shaman guide for Wrath of the Lich King Classic. While I believe there are some resources out there that can help you, I will do my best to contribute to the Resto Shaman space as best I can. This will be a lengthy video, guys, so I apologize for that. I'm going to try to go over as much as I possibly can. The document that I have that I'm reading from is about 12 pages long, so it's a bit to go through, but I believe it covers everything that you should know or should need to know about playing the Resto Shaman in Wrath of the Lich King. I will have the document posted on my Discord, and the link will be in the description if you want to check out my Discord. It's everything Resto Shaman. If you have any questions, I get back to people pretty quick. I also go through log reviews, so if you want to do that as well. But I will have this posted there if you want a quick reference to look back on. Alright, so getting started, as a background, I've been playing Resto Shaman since Ulduar and the original Wrath of the Lich King, so that's going on about 14-15 years now. In my experience, the Resto Shaman is the most versatile healer in Wrath of the Lich King. We can tank heal very effectively with Earth Shield and Laser Healing Wave, and cover large amounts of raid damage with Chain Heal. Resto Shamans make great healers for soloing 10-man content with our diverse spell profile. In past expansions, Resto Shamans were considered Chain Heal bots, as that would be the only spell worth using. While Chain Heal is still our bread and butter ability, our toolkit will allow good Resto Shamans to break that stigma and excel at any healing role that they are given. Alright guys, so your role in the raid. Your role in the raid, guys, is pretty simple. You cover what is needed the most. Being the most versatile healer in Wrath of the Lich King, you can easily plug the holes and the gaps of your healing team. Does the fight call for more tank healing? Does the fight call for more raid healing? Or does it call for both? The Resto Shaman can fill all these gaps with ease. A good Resto Shaman will figure out what is missing from their healing composition and adjust themselves to fit the mold accordingly. Alright, the big question is why bring a Resto Shaman in the first place? In all honesty, most of the time you will want to bring a second Holy Paladin strictly for their DSAC alone. The one drawback to the Resto Shaman is the lack of their defensive cooldown. We do not have a DSAC, we do not have a pain suppression, a battle res, an innervate, or a guardian spirit. The one thing you need to bring as a Resto Shaman if you want a competitive spot in a PvE guild is insane healing per second. The only thing that we bring is our ability to heal. So if you want to make sure that you are pumping out as much as possible. Generally, parsing as a healer is irrelevant, but since Resto Shamans only come to raid as an HPS bot, your parses matter. Hopefully this guide gives you some insight on how to bring the most out of yourself as a Resto Shaman. Alright guys, going over the races real quick. Alliance, you only have one option, but it's a good option. You can only go Draenei, but your racial is good, not necessarily for yourself, but to bring for the raid team. 1% hint to your party is great, that allows them to gym or gear more aggressively. Horde. You have 3 options, but only 2 raid viable ones. Tauren, you can raid as a Tauren, but it's much worse than the other options. In terms of racials, you only have a tiny bit more health, which in reality isn't that great. Second option is Orc. This is a good racial choice if you are maining an Elemental Shaman, but play Resto as a backup healer. The Blood Fury racial only affects spell damage, so it's not too useful for Resto Shamans outside of popping it to drop a Fire Ellie. Now for Troll. Troll is the obvious choice for the PvE Resto Shaman. Berserking is a 20% haste buff on a 3-minute cooldown. This is a mini Bloodlust, and can and will save your raid during times of need. Timing Berserking with big incoming raid damage, i.e. tantrums from XT or black holes explosions from Algalon, will exponentially increase your HPS and the chances of your raid coming out on top. Alright guys, let's go over talents real quick. Talents is pretty straightforward. Most of the time, you're going to be rocking the 0, 13, 58 for your resto tree. Just go down real quick on the resto tree so you'll be able to see it. I'm not going to go over every single talent and ability. And then here's your enhancement tree. Sometimes your guild will want you to go for enhancing totems to get 15% more on your strength of earth totem. If you don't have an enhancement shaman, this is a really good pickup for you to grab because they're typically the only ones that bring the improved agi and strength from this, because your death knights won't. Typically you would just take 3 points out of ancestral knowledge and put it in enhancing totems. You lose, what is it, 6% intellect, which in reality it sounds like a lot, but you'll manage just fine. I'm actually about to take these points out for my raid to bring these enhancing totems. But yeah, it's a pretty standard build. A lot of people sometimes go for elemental weapons and they see that, you know, 30% increase on your earth living weapon. In reality, guys, that's only like 40 spell power. It is not worth giving up anything in the resto tree to gain 40 extra spell power. 40 extra spell power is pretty minimal when you start looking at all the things that you can grab from the resto tree. Our tree is pretty well itemized, or well kitted for us and our uses. So please don't go elemental weapons. It is a complete waste of talents. Talent points for only 40 extra spell power. Also, I see some Resto Shamans not speccing into Cleanse Spirit, which gives us the ability to remove curses. You absolutely need this. It is your responsibility to decurse, dispel, cure poison and diseases as much as you possibly can, so your DPS can keep pumping. Don't let a mage do it unless they absolutely have to. If you have the ability to do so, do it. Alright, we're going to go into our stats now, which I see most people getting confused with Resto Shamans, but it's very straightforward. Resto Shamans want to worry about only 4 stats in this order: haste, spell power, crit chance, and MP5. Haste is a no-brainer in terms of why it's so important to us. Chain Heal is our main healing ability and will probably be used 80%, if not upwards of 95% of the time, depending on the fight. Chain Heal is a base 2.5 second cast time, therefore bringing the cast time down on such a long spell is critical. The more chain heals you get out, the more healing you'll do, obviously. You want to stack as much haste as possible while keeping your mana pool in mind. Haste is a double-edged sword. The more you cast, the faster you go out of mana, so plan your mana cooldowns, i.e. mana pot, mana tide, and innervate if it's available accordingly. The weighting of haste goes up significantly as the expansion goes on, due to our mana pool growing larger and having naturally more mana return through MP5 and crit rating, but more on that later. The haste weights going from each tier, in terms of it being a weighted stat, is tier 7, it's 1.2, tier 8, it's 1.6, tier 9, it's 1.8, and in tier 10 and ICC, it goes all the way up to 2.2. So haste is our number one stat that we want to stack. Resto Shamans do have a haste soft cap at 1269 haste rating. When you are fully raid buffed into 25 man and you have 1269 haste, it will bring your lesser healing wave to exactly 1.00 seconds. At this time, it is okay to stop going for more haste rating and start going for other stats like spell power, but I generally prefer to be in the range of 1340 to 1370 in ICC. That's where I feel comfortable with my chain heal cast time. But it's perfectly okay to stop at 1269, because that's what you should be shooting for in terms of late game Resto Shaman. Let's talk about spell power. To be honest, there's not a lot to say about spell power. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of this stat because it's very straightforward. Spell power is always a good stat to have more of. Obviously, the more spell power you have, the more healing you do per spell. There's nothing fancy here, guys. It's always going to be beneficial for us to have more spell power. On to crit chance. There is a lot to say about crit chance. I think it's very misunderstood for Resto Shamans. So let me go over the large amounts of benefits that crit has for us. Crit is something I believe a lot of Resto Shamans don't fully realize the benefits of. The obvious benefit of crit is the chance our heals doing 150% of the healing they would normally do. And what's more satisfying than seeing all 4 chain heal bounces crit? The benefit that I do not believe enough Resto Shamans take into account is the correlation between critical strike chance and the improved water shield talent. Let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. Improved water shield does not give passive mana return. Instead, it gives your spells a chance on crit to give you a water orb's worth of mana, which is 492, without consuming a water shield charge. You have 100% chance on Healing Wave or Riptide crit, 60% chance on Lizard Healing Wave crit, or a 30% chance on Chain Heal crits. Each bounce of the Chain Heal counts as a separate crit, so you can potentially get 4 water orb procs off of a single Chain Heal. It does not happen very often, but I have seen it from time to time. That being said, I've seen plenty of times where 2 water shield procs will go off on the same Chain Heal. All that being said, roughly 1% of crit translates to 14 to 18 MP5 depending how often you're casting Chain Heal. The more you cast Chain Heal, the more chances of getting water orb procs. Ever wonder why sometimes in a fight you have more mana than you can spend, while other times you are struggling to keep from going This is most likely due to getting great crit RNG and getting a lot of mana return through improved water shield. The more crit you have, the more RNG is on your side. The scaling and usefulness of crit keeps skyrocketing through the phases as you gain more of the stat. Right now, during phase 2, I'm currently sitting at 45% crit on Chain Heal and Raids, and during ICC, this will most likely go up to nearly 60%. Thirdly, each crit you do gives the target a buff called Ancestral Fortitude. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Where is Ancestral Fortitude? There it is. It's at the very top. This reduces physical damage taken by the target by 10%. This is an actual insane buff that you need to keep on your tanks, especially during hard-hitting fights like Algalon and the Lich King. Resto Shamans are the best at keeping this buff up in a fight, especially with a Tidal Wave empowered Lizard Healing Wave, and this should be a priority on the tanks. Fourthly, critical strike chance on Chain Heal specifically has a very nice correlation with our tier bonus for tier 10. The tier 10 4-piece bonus directly correlates to Chain Heal crit. Your Chain Heal critical strikes will cause the target to heal for 25% of the healing amount over 9 seconds. This is insane healing for high raid damage fights such as Professor Putricide, Blood Queen Lanithil, and the Lich King. So crit, guys, that is our third most important stat. Then let's go down to MP5. MP5 is a good stat, but it's very one-dimensional, and it's why it's at the bottom of our priority list. It gives us a flat, guaranteed mana return. There's nothing flashy or fancy here. Now here's the debate between crit and MP5. There are some arguments about what is better, critical strike chance or MP5. The answer is pretty straightforward. At lower gear levels where you do not have much crit, flat MP5 will give you more mana return. When you start getting decently geared, probably around the 235 item level, critical strike starts to overtake MP5 in terms of usefulness. In ICC, MP5 will be near useless due to the high amount of crit you should have and the mana return from improved water shield. The TLDR is MP5 is early is good, but mediocre late. crit is mediocre early, but it is great late game. Alright guys, going over our spells and abilities. I have them right down here. If you're ever wondering where my action bars are, they're right down here at the bottom. I just have them on mouse overs. Alright, going over our abilities. Laser Healing Wave. It is our medium fast heal with an average mana cost. This is great for someone that needs to be saved ASAP, or to use to tank heal with the Laser Healing Wave Glyph, but more on that later. Used in conjunction with our Tidal Waves buff, this heal receives a 30% crit chance increase. With our passive crit rating, an empowered Laser Healing Wave will have a nearly 80% crit chance. So it's incredibly good for keeping tanks alive, guys. Definitely use it, 100%. Next is our big healing wave. This is our big, slow heal at a large mana cost. Most of the time, this heal is not worth being cast, but there are some niche situations where it's useful and can save the raid from a wipe. The only time Healing Wave is worth being cast is when you have the Tidal Wave buff. The empowered Healing Wave receives a 30% cast reduction, putting it in the range of about 1.2 to 1.4 seconds depending on your haste rating. A 1.2 second heal that can hit for 12k and crit upwards of 22k is absolutely useful and can save a tank on low health from death. Make sure that you have a way to track tidal waves, and always keep this in the back of your mind for fights where the tank will be taking a lot of damage. Alright, time for our big heal. Chain Heal. This is our bread and butter ability. This is the reason why I've played Resto Shaman for so long. Chain Heal is a moderate, slow heal at a medium mana cost. What makes Chain Heal so good is the fact that it hits upwards of 4 targets when glyphed, and the range of Chain Heal is 12.5 yards, so the bounce of the chain will go quite farther than most people believe. Chain Heal is also a smart heal and will automatically target members of the raid with the lowest percentage of HP on the bounces. Each bounce of the Chain Heal diminishes the heal before it by 40%. Let's say the initial hit is 1000. That means all the bounces will be 1000, 600, 360, and 1216. Chain Heal is a slow 2.5 second cast, and that's why we stack so much haste. Chain Heal also activates our Tidal Wave buff, which is imperative to keep up for emergency uses of Laser Healing Wave and Healing Wave. Next is Riptide. This is our instant cast heal, which leaves a hot on the target. This is a great heal to use while on the move, or if you want to keep an extra hot up on a target. Riptide has 2 secondary functions. When using Riptide, it grants you Tidal Waves, which allows you to keep the buff up when you're moving. Secondary, when you chain heal a target with Riptide on them, it will consume the hot and increase the healing of that chain heal by 25%. You can time this interaction between Riptide and Chain Heal with damage that you know will be incoming soon, and you want to precast a big heal. Alright, let's talk about Earth Shield. This is our buff that we mainly place on the tank. It has 8 charges and heals the target as soon as they take damage. It has a small ICD of about 6 to 8 seconds. Earth Shield acts as a smart heal, and it only procs when the target takes enough damage to warrant activation. I believe it's one of the smartest heals in the game, and typically only has a 4% overheal rate, making it incredibly effective. During the rare times that a tank is not needed, you can place the Earth Shield on a target that either needs healing, or a target that needs the extra pushback resistance. You can also place it on yourself to avoid pushback, although this will come at a great cost of not getting mana back through Water Shield. I know I talked a lot about tidal waves, guys, but there it is. Have it up on the screen right now. When you cast Chain Heal Riptide, you have a 100% chance to lower the cast time of your healing wave by 30% and increase the critical strike chance of your Leisure Healing Wave by 20%. And it also increases the bonus healing effects on your Healing Wave and Leisure Healing Wave by 20 and 10% respectively. This is a buff that you need to keep up 100% of the time. You need this up 100% of the time. Let me reiterate, 100% uptime on tidal waves. Having a clutch healing wave or Leisure Healing Wave on the tank will absolutely and can save your raid. Do not overlook tidal waves. Do not overlook Healing Wave or Leisure Healing Wave. A good Resto Shaman knows when to use other spells other than Chain Heal. Don't get me wrong, 80 to 90% of your cast will still be Chain Heal. But you need to know how to weave in Leisure Healing Wave and Healing Wave depending on the situation. It happens every fight, I promise you. Almost no fight in the game requires 100% Chain Heal usage. So just keep that in mind and have a way to track this with a weak aura. Alright guys, let's go into our glyphs. I have every glyph in the bag that we need. There are 5 glyphs that we'll use, 1 being permanent and the other 4 will be rotated out during the fight. Alright, our permanent glyph is going to be Glyph of Chain Heal. This increases your Chain Heal from 3 total targets to 4 total targets. You should never be replacing this glyph, as it is the single best effective healing increase that we get in terms of glyphing. Let's go over our 2 raid healing glyphs. The first one is Healing Stream Totem. This glyph increases the healing from our Healing Stream Totem by 20%. It doesn't seem like too much, but on high raid damage fights, this will make up a considerable amount of your healing and definitely worth using the glyph for. Think of Algalon, think of XT, think of Iron Council. Glyph of Earth Living Weapon. It increases the chance of our Earth Living proccing on a target by 5%. Again, it doesn't seem like much, but it is a great healing addition on high AoE fights like the ones that I mentioned earlier, plus going into ICC where there's going to be a bunch of raid damage every single encounter. Next up is Glyph of Earthshield. Glyph of Earthshield increases the flat healing on Earthshield by 20%. Yep, 20%. Since the overheal on Earthshield is so minimal, this glyph is fantastic to use to supplement the healing on the tank. This is great to use when soloing 10-man content, and I almost exclusively use this and Chain Heal glyph when solo healing 10-man content. The last glyph we will be using is Glyph of Leisure Healing Wave. This glyph increases the healing of Leisure Healing Wave on the target affected by Earthshield by 20%. This is a direct tank healing increase and should be used when you need to increase the healing on the main tank. This works well in conjunction with Glyph of Earthshield for maximum tank healing. Fights I would think of where you would probably use this is going to be Algalon and 10-man when you are probably going to be the primary tank healer, or in fights like Heroic Lich King where you again will be a primary tank healer because he hits extremely hard. Any other glyphs are not worth using, guys. Let me pull it up real quick. Sorry, I know this is kind of barbaric and not a fancy video by any means. I'm not a video editor. I am a guy who plays Resto Shaman, so bear with me. Where is inscription? Go to Shamans. Alright, so I know a lot of people think of maybe using Glyph of Healing Wave where it will heal you for 20%. You shouldn't be using Healing Wave that much anyway to make this effective. Yeah, so no bueno. Glyph of Manatide Totem. It grants you 1% of the additional maximum mana on each pulse. There's 4 pulses, so this will give you 4% mana total more. Not worth it in my opinion. And then the last one that some people think is good is the passive mana regen on your water shield by 30%. This isn't terrible, but if you're finding yourself in a situation where you need this passive mana regen from your water shield, there are probably things in your gameplay that you can improve on in terms of managing your mana that I would actually take a look at. You should not need Glyph of Water Mastery. Even if you reach the Enrage on every single boss, this Glyph should not be needed. So please don't use those. In my opinion, they are not very good at all. Oop, let me pull that back up, because next we are going to talk about professions. There are 4 professions remotely worth getting as Resto Shaman, and I will list them in order from best to worst. As most people probably already know, engineering is by far our best raid profession in Wrath of the Lich King. It gives us our 2 most important cooldowns. Firstly, Nitro Boots. Nitro Boots gives you the ability to dash away instantly from mechanics or to get into a better position for maximum healing. And also gives you 0.5% of crit or 24 crit rating on your spells. This is great. I think anyone who is serious about raiding should pick up engineering strictly for the boots. Secondly, this gives us our hyper speed accelerators. This glove enchant gives us a 340 haste on use effect on a 60-second cooldown. You can use these gloves multiple times during a fight to boost the haste on your chain heal and easily cover incoming raid damage. So you can use these on every single XT tantrum because they're about a minute to a minute and 15 seconds apart normally. They are great for fights with extremely high raid damage. You can use these on a lot of the Algalon Big Bangs. On the Black Hole Explosions. It is a fantastic cooldown. You should use them as much as humanly possible. And lastly, it also gives you extra mana when you use Runic Mana Injectors, which is just a nice little bonus to add. Gives you how much? Let's check it. I should know off the top of my head. I don't know the exact percentage, but it gives you more mana, and who doesn't love more mana? Alright guys, secondly, what we have is going to be jewel crafting. Jewel crafting is our second best PvE raid profession. It allows us to craft 3 34 haste rating gems, which are these quick dragon's eyes. And it gives us a nice static boost to our haste value. When you have epic gems, this will give you 42 more haste rating. When you have blue quality gems, it gives you 54 more haste rating. This slightly outdoes blacksmithing in endgame by giving us 2 more overall haste than blacksmithing. Let me go over why. So you have these for blacksmithing, which is the number 3 profession that you could have as a Resto Shaman. Blacksmithing is a solid option for Resto Shamans. You can add an extra socket to both your gloves and your bracers. These extra sockets will add up to 32 haste with blue quality gems, or an extra 40 haste with epic quality gems. Being just 2 haste rating below jewel crafting, blacksmithing is definitely worth keeping if you already have it. 2 haste rating is extremely min-max. You're not really going to feel the difference. But if you want to absolutely push your Resto Shaman as far as you can, jewel crafting is the way to go. But if you have blacksmithing, don't sweat it. It's almost identical. Lastly, guys, we have tailoring. Yep, we have tailoring. And it is for the Lightweave embroidery. Tailoring provides a decent effect on our cloak called Lightweave embroidery. This effect is a 295 increase to your spell power on a 15 second, 45 second internal cooldown. It can be great if it is timed properly, but the reality of on-proc effects is that we can't control when they happen. Healers are better suited for using items and effects that we can activate when we actually need them in a fight. Nevertheless, tailoring is still a decent option and probably the second best option if you are constantly going back and forth between Resto and Elemental. So guys, tailoring is, I would actually put this second to engineering if you are constantly flipping back and forth, if you're that 4th or 5th healer on your roster that they only bring out when they absolutely need, but you're playing Ellie a lot. I would definitely go tailoring over jewel crafting for that big fire Ellie snapshot. You can also get this Dark Glow embroidery, which gives you a chance to get 400 mana on spellcast. Again, you shouldn't ever be having to use this. You shouldn't be having that much mana problems as a shaman. So if you are tailoring, I would definitely go with the light reef embroidery. But your best two options are going to be engineering and jewel crafting. And just to let you know that I'm not a hypocrite, engineering and jewel crafting both at 450. Alright, we're going to go into our gemming. I'll go ahead and throw up my character sheet so you can see my gems. It is extremely straightforward. We want haste rating. There's no way around it. Let me talk about the metas first before we get into the other gems. There are two metas that we can use. I have them in my bags right here. The first one is the Insightful Earth Siege Diamond. This gives us 21 intellect and a chance to restore 600 mana on spell cast. It requires 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue gem to activate, which if you want to use this gem, it is 1 reckless and 1 energized gems. It is a great meta to use if you are lesser geared or a newer Resto Shaman and you are still figuring out how to manage your mana efficiently. The second meta that we can use, which I personally use, is the Revitalizing Skyflare Diamond. This gives you 11 MP5 and 3% increased critical healing effect. It requires 2 red gems to activate, which is, so you will use 2 reckless gems. This is a great meta to use if you are good at managing your mana and want more throughput in your build. You are going to be creating 50% plus during the last half of Wrath of the Lich King, so what is better than having more than 50% of your heals do 3% more healing? This is a straight raw increase to your healing as long as it's not overhealing. So if you want more raw healing, go Revitalizing Skyflare Diamond. If you are worried about your mana, go Insightful Earth Siege Diamond. Overall, both metas have their time and place, and either one works. Just choose the one that meets the demand of your playstyle in your raid. Alright guys, we are going to cover throughput gemming. As for the other gems on all of our gear, there's some nuance to it. The absolute most throughput, you want to gem Pure Haste. That is the blue quality Quick Autumn's Glow, or when epic gems come out, we have the Quick King's Amber. While going up to this much haste may seem daunting to your mana pool, it's actually not that bad to adjust to. I highly suggest giving it a try and seeing how you manage it. The only way to improve is to actually try out the gemming and figure out how to manage your mana pool. So if you see guys, I actually have completely unbuffed 954 haste rating. Now, as you can see, I live the haste life, I live the crit life, I don't use the charm of meticulous timing, but we live that haste life. Every single gem is haste. You see my reckless gem in there with 9's power 8 haste. You see it in there as well to activate my meta. We live the haste life, guys. Everything haste. This is going to give us our maximum throughput. Right now, without any buffs, no totems, my chain heal is at 1.78 seconds. When we get into raid, it's about a 1.6. It is, I absolutely crank out chain heals, and this is the best way to go if you want more healing in your raid. The other gemming option is to go the mixed build. For your red sockets, you can use the reckless gems, which are the 9 spell power, 8 haste, which for the epic gem versions, I think it's going to be 12 spell power, 10 haste. And for the blue sockets, you can use the energized ones, which are the blue quality is 8 haste, 4 MP5. I believe the epic version is 10 haste and 6 MP5. And in the yellow sockets, you can use whichever one of the two, either the reckless or the energized, for whichever of the secondary stat you feel you need more of. So yeah, you're going to be cutting your haste from your gems in half, but you will gain more spell power, more MP5, and since you won't have as much haste, you will actually keep more of your mana. I would only recommend going a mixed gemming build if your kill times are really slow or you're newer to Resto Shamans. But if you are a seasoned Resto Shaman, it is your main. It's what you play in raid and an organized guild. Go the throughput build, guys. Learn how to manage your mana. That's a big part of the skill curve of playing Resto Shaman. And lastly, let's talk about the spell power Resto Shaman. Under no circumstances should you be gemming for full spell power. I see a lot of shamans going around and they are gemming nothing but spell power. I do not understand where the spell power Resto Shaman came from, but by all accounts, gemming haste is far superior than gemming raw spell power. Do not gem full spell power. I cannot reiterate it enough. Full spell power Resto Shaman will never hold up to a Resto Shaman that is gemming pure haste. Do not do full spell power. Alright guys, let's go over our consumables. Like I said, we're sticking with the haste train. We're a one-trick pony. We want haste, 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 haste. Haste is the 40 haste food is the best food that we can get. It's either the very burnt warg or the imperial manta steak. Wargs are easy for me to kill, so I get these. So I use these and I cook them up. Not a problem. Another option is the fish feast, which is 46 spell power. There's nothing wrong with using it, especially like in a pinch, or if you're tank healing, specifically in like 10 man. There's nothing wrong with it, guys, because it's just your food buff. But I would recommend just going full haste, and that includes your food as well. This is where some people think we're going to talk about next. Some people disagree with. This one gives me the best results possible, so I'm sticking by it. I've been using it for a very long time on Wrath of the Lich King private servers, and it has also served me well in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. For elixirs and flask, I believe the best combination of these is to use the elixir of lightning speed, which gives you 45 haste rating, and the elixir of mighty mage blood, which gives you 30 MP5. I prefer using these over flask of the frostworm, raw spell power. Shamans should try to get as much haste as possible, and the combined weight of the elixirs, in my opinion, is greater than that of the flask. There's nothing wrong with using the spell power flask, though. I just believe personally that the elixirs are better. They give me better results. I don't know if it's a mind thing where I just want to see my haste numbers bigger so I perform better. But I personally think the elixirs are better. But this is also so much spell power that you're probably not wrong in using the flask as well. I just prefer the elixirs personally. Let's drop down to potions, guys. There are 3 potion options available to you. Your mana potion, your potion of wild magic, and your potion of speed. Let's talk about each one of them. Your runic mana injector. This is self-explanatory. If you need mana, you use the potion. If you're engineering, you will get even more mana back. I typically save my mana potion when I'm floating around 70% mana, and I know there is enough phases in the fight coming up where I can safely regen through passive MP5. So I go ahead and pop that bad boy. It normally gets me up to about 90% mana, and then I can keep pumping away. But you can also save it to where you're almost and then you can pop it. There's no really wrong way to use a mana pot. Just make sure you don't use it early in the fight where you actually don't get the full effect of the full mana pot. Let's talk about potion of speed now. This is a potion that gives us 500 haste rating for 15 seconds. This is a powerful cooldown at your disposal. This is great to use when your gloves or berserking are on cooldown, and cannot be used for incoming raid spikes and raid damage. Be wary of using the potion of speed though, as you will not have extra mana from the runic mana injector. I typically only use this potion when mana is an absolute non-issue in a fight, and I do not think I need to use mana potion at all. So if it is a longer fight that's over 3 or 4 minutes long, I'm typically always going to use the mana injector. But if it's a pretty fast fight, or if I know there's going to be long breaks in the fight, like Memoron, to passively regen mana, I'll probably use a Potion of Speed. Like fights like Ignis, Razor Scale, Kolagarn, where mana is really not an issue because the boss dies so fast. Potion of Speed is a great use. That is another insane cooldown for us. Makes your chain heals insanely fast. Lastly, the potion that we have that a lot of people overlook as Resto Shamans, in my opinion, is the Potion of Wild Magic. This potion gives you 200 spell power and 200 crit chance. It has extreme niche uses, so you shouldn't be using it too often, but I believe that you should keep a stack in your inventory just in case. Typically, I use this to snapshot a big Earth Shield on the tank right before the pool in fights like Algalon, just for a little extra healing. And you can also use this to snapshot a big Fire Elemental on the pool as well. On that note, guys, if you're not using a Fire Ellie as a Resto Shaman, you really should. I have mine down here. I pop it on pool with the Wild Magic Potion a lot. If it stays alive for the whole 2 minutes, it's like 100k damage. It's nothing to laugh at. You just let your elemental do its work, and it does quite a considerable amount of damage, and it will just make the fight a little bit faster for a relatively low mana cost for what you get out of it. But back to the potion of Wild Magic. Besides that, you shouldn't be using it too much, as a Potion of Speed will actually give you more throughput. But it's nice to have in your bags just in case you get a wild hair and want to try something different. Potion of Wild Magic is actually really good to use on General Vezax because you can get mana back, and you don't want to be using Potion of Speed because you don't want to be casting faster, because you'll go faster. But Potion of Wild Magic, while the Animus is like at 30% or so, and everyone's taking good damage, there's not a lot of overhealing. Potion of Wild Magic, you can send that, more spell power, more crit, you're going to be good. That is really it, guys, that I have typed down. There's obviously probably a lot more that I've missed, but those are my general thoughts on Resto Shaman. But we covered quite a good bit. We covered potions, we covered your consumables, we covered your gymming, we covered your professions, your glyphs, your main spells and abilities, all the stats and how they interact with you, the races, your role in the raid, and why you should bring a Resto Shaman in the first place. So my final thoughts on Resto Shaman. Resto Shamans have a special place in my heart, but I also understand the reality of playing one. To be completely frank, to have a spot in a top guild as a Resto Shaman is incredibly hard, because one, people want holy paladins, so they're not going to give you a chance. So the only way to show what Resto Shamans are capable of is to pump out a lot of HPS. Resto Shamans, in my opinion, are the most insane healer, especially when it comes to ICC. When we scale incredibly hard with haste and with crit, and I truly believe, I've played a lot of Wrath Lich King, I believe that Resto Shamans are the hardest scaling healer. In ICC, when we get to about 1400 haste, and when he gets 60% crit, we are going to absolutely blast. Alright, but I would just say that if you really want a raid spot in a top PvE guild, you need to prove that you belong there. And do not be afraid to pump out giant HPS, because that is what you bring to the raid. If you try to be a giant utility bot, you're not going to really show off the Resto Shaman kit, because you don't actually have a lot of utility. You have a Dispel and you have a Bloodlust. Like, that's all we bring. So you need to pump out the HPS. You don't really have any big cooldowns to worry about. You don't have any utility to worry about. You don't have Hands of Salvations. You don't have Bops. You don't have Sacks. You don't have a PS. Your only job is to position correctly and to heal the tank. Not heal the tank, heal the raid. Position correctly, heal the raid. That is your job as a Resto Shaman. If you have any questions, guys, about what I missed, because there's so much to cover, and I don't want to make this video an hour long, but there's so much to cover, and I'm doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning, so I probably missed some stuff, but I read directly off my document here, so I hope I didn't miss too much. If you have any questions, I will leave a link to my Discord below. Feel free to pop on. I answer pretty quick, guys. Just directly ping me, and I'll get to you pretty shortly. If you have any log reviews, if you want me to go over, I'll help you out there as well. Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and get some sleep now. Sorry this wasn't any fancy video. It's just me talking over some stupid little video of me going around at the very top of Ice Crown. Did it up here because it looks cool, and Ice Crown is my favorite raid. So hopefully this gives you some insight on how to play the Resto Shaman even better than before. Like I said, if you have any questions, guys, just hit me up on my Discord.